Hi everyone, I'm back. I hope we'll get into that a little later, but today I'm going to be testing what it's like to do resin in an uncontrolled environment. As you can see, my craft room is pretty cold, and for my Canadian watchers, 64 Fahrenheit is about 18 Celsius. And this is actually part of the reason as to why I've been gone for so long. The machine I use to keep my craft room at the right temperature, at the right humidity, has decided to fail on me. So today I want to see how resin is going to react in my cold room. I also want to try and see how Resincrete reacts as well. So if you're interested in seeing how this goes, let's get started. So I'm going to be making two pieces, and I'm going to make them in two parts. The first half will be made with Resincrete and the other half with epoxy. And this way I get to experiment more with using both in a project. Now, to keep each part separate, I'm going to use some Play-Doh to create a barrier. Shh, don't tell my girls I took their Play-Doh. But to be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure if this is actually going to work. I don't know if the Play-Doh will bond with the Resincrete, so this is going to be a learning moment for myself as well. I assume it would bond to actual resin if I was pouring epoxy first, since Play-Doh isn't made from silicone. But let's just see if this works. Let me know down in the comments what you've used to create barriers in resin like this. Okay, so now that the Play-Doh is shaped how I want it, I'm gonna go ahead and mix up my Resincrete. You do want to make sure that your clay or whatever you use as a barrier is securely pressed down, because the slightest little gap will mean that your resin or your Resincrete mixture will leak into the other side. So just double check so that that doesn't happen. I'm going to mix up 175 grams of powder mixture with 54 grams of water. I am adding an extra gram of water since I'm planning to add some pigment to this mixture for my second piece, but in case any of you who haven't used Resincrete before, the mixing ratio is 10-part powder to 3-part water. I'm really curious to see how this resin and Resincrete are going to react and cure in my cold craft room. It's been a really long time since I've worked in an uncontrolled environment. I've had my space heater air purifier machine since April of 2020, I think it was, and it's been working perfectly. It's been keeping my room at the right temperature, at the right humidity for epoxy, so this is definitely a bump in the road. For anyone who's watching and doesn't know, a lot of the epoxy resins, at least the ones I personally use, need a room temperature around 74 Fahrenheit, which is around 23 Celsius to cure properly. Plus, the temperature and the humidity of the room needs to stay consistent throughout the whole curing process. And as of right now, the temperature in my craft room is not consistent at all, especially since the time of me recording this video, it's summer and we have our air conditioning on. So I'm sitting in a room that's at least 10 degrees below what it should be for epoxy. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that the resin can handle it. Okay, so now that both molds are filled, I do have a little extra Resincrete left, so I'm actually going to fill up this other mold just so that I can demold these first to test whether or not the Resincrete has cured properly, and that way, if it hasn't, I don't ruin the two main pieces that I'm working on. Alright, so the Resincrete looks and feels like it's cured. It's been about 45 minutes, give or take. And let's see what we've got here. The pieces do feel slightly cold and damp, but the pieces are solid and they seem to be holding up, so I do think it's okay to go ahead and pour the epoxy resin. But first, I have to remove this Play-Doh from my molds. By the way, I just realized I don't think I mentioned whether or not I let the Play-Doh dry before pouring in the Resincrete, but as you can see, the Play-Doh is still soft, and I'm happy to report that the Play-Doh did not bond with the Resincrete. I'm definitely going to have to try this with resin next, but you definitely want the Play-Doh to be soft. If the Play-Doh cures and goes hard, then it's more than likely going to bond with resin or the resincrete because, again, it's not made out of silicone. Okay, so now it's time for resin, and I have here regular epoxy resin, and it's a bit on the thicker side. It's not as runny as it usually is. Cold temperatures make resin more viscous for whatever reason. Let me know if you know why, but I could put these bottles in a warm bath. Just fill a little tub with warm water and let the bottle sit in the warm water for 5 to 10 minutes, but I'm not going to do that today because that's not the point of this video. The only thing I may do to this resin is run it through my air bubble remover just to get rid of some of the air that I'm going to put into this resin, but I won't add any heat. I want to see the results of doing resin without any heat. My resin is mixed now, and I did get a bit of air bubbles in here, but the resin does look normal. So for this first piece here, I'm just going to keep it simple, and I'm only going to add a little bit of gold leaf. I think having the plain white resincrete and the clear resin with the gold leaf will make this resin coaster look very elegant. Plus, keeping the resin clear will show us how much air bubbles get stuck in the resin once the resin is cured. Now, for this second piece, I'm going to make it a little bit more complex. I want to do it in 2 layers. This first layer, again, it's going to be clear, and I'm going to add some embellishments just to make this tray pretty, but my thought behind doing this piece in layers is to see how quickly I can pour the next layer of resin. Usually with this resin here, I can pour layers in 2 to 3 hour intervals. Again, it just really depends on how warm my room is, but I just want to take the opportunity to see how long it takes now. I'm really hopeful that the resin can handle my cold craft room because I really miss working with resin. I really miss posting on YouTube and talking to this resin community that my YouTube channel has brought me. I am in the process of figuring out how to get my machine out to get it fixed. The problem is that where I have to drop it off is a good 3 to 4 hour drive from where I live, and I have to drop it off on a weekday. With my husband working and my girls in school, it's difficult for me to do anything on a weekday, so I am working on finding a workaround, but it's just taking me a really long time. I also have some personal stuff happening as well, so it's been really difficult. 2024 is definitely kicking my behind. Anyways, okay everyone, so I've given this resin a full 24 hours to cure from when I poured the pink layer, and it seems cured to the touch. And right now my room is a little colder than what it was when I started this video. It's 62F, which is 17C. So yeah, my room is cold. But again, I ended up with a little leftover resin and I poured a test piece just to see what we'd get. So let's see. So this resin isn't ready. Just look at how bendy it is. I don't think I should demold my pieces just yet. I think I will have to leave it for another day. I'll give it another 24 hours, I think, and then I'll come back to see where we're at. But before I go, I do want to point out something that I noticed when I came in, and it's that both pieces have these weird markings and texture on the resin. This piece here isn't as bad, but the pink, which you'll see in just a moment, the texture is way more noticeable. I'm not exactly sure what's happened. I think maybe the humidity of the room. It looks like the resin is being pulled. I don't know. I'll be back in 24 hours. All right, it's time to demold these pieces. I ended up giving them 2 full days to cure, and the tester piece is finally fully solid. And just to show you one more time, my room again is colder than the last time I showed the thermometer, so it is what it is. I can still see the blemishes and textures on the pieces, so that's a bummer. It must have been the inconsistent temperature that did it, With the resin going hot as it's curing and the room being cold, there was probably a little battle going on. Battle of the temperatures. But when it comes to this first piece here, it turned out exactly how I wanted it to, so at least there's that. And I'm glad the Resincrete didn't absorb much of the epoxy. There's just a little bit along the edge where they meet. Now for this second piece, again, the texture is there, but if I'm being honest, I'm not over the moon with how this one turned out. I was going for a more pastel pink, but I guess I just chose the wrong pigment. Oh well, it's still cute. After all, these are just tester pieces. As you can see, the resin overall cured okay. There were the blemishes on the pieces, but I think with a little bit of sanding and a top coat, I can hide them. Surprisingly, when it comes to air bubbles, not many got stuck in the pieces. I guess with the slower cure time, a lot more got to escape. Now, when it comes to the Resincrete, it cured perfectly. Maybe the pieces were still a little damp longer than they should have, but I didn't really notice any huge differences. But yeah, I'm not mad with these results. I think I can keep doing my resin work even though I don't have heating in my room right now. I might try buying a heating mat, but I want to try putting the resin in a warm bath first and see if that helps. I hope you enjoyed this video and that you've learned something. If you're interested in watching more resin videos, then be sure to check out one of the ones that's popping on screen now. Thanks so much for watching.